administration officials continue to be out explaining the president's policies. Show you two. First, here is Kevin Hassett last night, 105, with Sean.
What did we get this week as a country? Why are we better off than we were on Monday here now towards the end of the week?
You know, we're better off, way better off right now than we were on the 20th of January. Let's look at the economic data. We've had two magnificent jobs reports. The jobs reports were incredible. You know, 10,000 automobile jobs, a big increase in manufacturing jobs, big increase in every kind of job. The market thought there'd be about 150,000 jobs created. It was almost 230,000 in the last jobs report. And then what happens is they have this old thing called the Phillips curve, right? Where it says that if you have job growth, then that causes inflation. And so while we've got this amazing job growth from President Trump's policy, we got a big reduction in inflation. So we've got people going back to work, increasing the supply of labor, increasing the supply of products. We've got firms, bringing trillions of dollars of investment back into the U.S. That increases the supply of stuff. And when you increase the supply of stuff, so suppose you got an apple tree and then you get another apple tree. And so now you've got an apple farm with two apple trees. Well, when you go to the market, you got a lot more apples, but you're going to have to lower the price if you want to sell all the apples. And that's what's going on. We got a lot more apples and people are lowering the prices.
The reality is, jobs report beat expectations. The CPI report beat expectations. PPI report beat expectations. You can cherry pick and find some negative data too, but the president's supporters have plenty to point to say things are going pretty well on the economy. But there's also the fact that China is now retaliated again. Chairman Xi says he is not scared of President Trump or the United States. And there is a great deal of unhappiness regarding particularly a trade war with China. Here is the U.S. Trade Representative, Mr. Greer, this morning on Fox.
We need to diversify from China and be able to source from other countries. And so I'm obviously sensitive to the needs of households and what we're seeing, but we've been put in a position and a point of emergency, frankly, where if we can only maintain our standard of living by being dependent on China, who is a strategic adversary, that's a very dangerous position to be in. And so we need to accelerate this.
What did you learn from the phase one deal last time, which they didn't keep to, and it wasn't enforced? Does that make you worry about cutting any deal with China in the long run?
Well, my sense is that the Chinese are pragmatic. I learned to have a deep respect for them. They're very serious. They understand power and realpolitik in the international arena. When we did the phase one deal in the first couple of years, where the Trump administration was still there, we actually were able to enforce it. They bought more ag products from us in 2020 and then even 2021 than they had done in history. So it is a matter of enforcement. And I think if there's mutual understanding, mutual respect, and a real agreement, you can actually move the ball forward.
So after yesterday's losses, futures are pointing up to 25 minutes away from the open here. Overseas markets mixed. Lots of questions about the dollar. We're not going to start with the economics, though, guys. Start with the politics and the red hot anger that remains, even with the president's reversal, from the financial community, from Europe, from elite columnists like George Will. Peggy Noonan says the establishment won this week, and it's great to see the establishment. Sean, how much does Donald Trump care about what the establishment thinks about his trade policy, and how much should he care? Zero for the both. How much he cares and how much he should care? Both zero?
I mean, I don't know that. So how much does he care? Probably, well, actually a little higher than zero, because I think some of these folks probably are, cross over into Mar-a-Lago a little. So he probably does care. I mean, just in terms of how wealthy some of these folks are. And they've been, some of them, not everybody's been opposed to him. So I would say that there are some people that kind of in a concentric, or what does Kalma like to say, in a Venn diagram, that cross over into that world. So there's probably some people that he cares about. But most of these people are the same people who have been consistently wrong since Donald Trump entered the stage. I don't know how many that he really cares about or should care about either. They're the same people whose wisdom has gotten us into a lot of this mess with China, with our debt. And I think he knows that his base, it's almost radioactive. If you say that some of these people support X, fill in the blank, the immediate visceral reaction is good, then let's oppose it. So I think to some degree, if he was going out there getting praise from Peggy Noonan and George Will, it would probably cause the MAGA faithful to be a little concerned.
Dan.
I think he does care a little bit about what the establishment thinks because he's always wanted to be accepted by them. He's always wanted praise. That's why he still calls the New York Times proactively to chew in their ear, because he still harbors dreams that someday they'll heap praise on him. I think he should. I mean, I think Sean makes some good points that the establishment is not always right. They're super defensive of the existing order because it has worked for them for the last, 40 or 50 years. I think where they're worth listening to is on the economy. I keep going back to this. When you say that we need to make all these changes, it's because 30, 40% of this country has been harmed by trade, but 60 to 65% has not. And so when everyone says the market spoke this week, it almost is like the majority of the country has spoken. Like we are not willing to take serious pain in your kind of chaotic efforts to try to right wrongs for the other part of this country when we don't really see a plan.
Yeah, I think the key word there, Dan, is plan.
Yep.
I think where this administration would benefit both in the macro and the micro is if they said, look, here's where we are. We're $37 trillion in debt. We have a $2 trillion a year deficit. And China owns our IP. They steal our IP. They do tech transfers. They are basically not. They are our enemy, and we need to be straight up about what that threat looks like and how we're going to address it. And we need shared sacrifice or something. But there needs to be a rally cry to understanding what the goal is. And that's what I think is missing right now, is that we're not doing it for the sake of doing it. We're doing it because we need to strengthen our country and prevent adversaries from finding an opportunity to come after us.
I think the lesson of the week in terms of the establishment, and if you haven't read Peggy's column, I recommend it to you. I think the establishment proved it's stronger than MAGA thinks or wants it to be, but it's still not as strong as it thinks it is. And the president has a pretty free hand here, but he reined back, but he continues the trade war with China, and I don't see any signs of that ending.